Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm a child psychiatrist and a parent coach, and I'm also a mum. And today I'm talking about how to help you stop siblings fighting, because this is something that parents really often ask me. And if that's something you're interested in, please stay tuned. So this is a question I get asked all the time. And what I always say to parents is that the most important thing to do is basically to do a little bit of research and observation, because it's important to understand what is it that is actually happening. What is going on for your children? How are the fights being triggered? So the way I look at it is a sort of what starts them off, what happens in the fight, and then what happens at the resolution. So what are the things that trigger it? What are the things that kind of actually happen that make the fight happen? Is it quite predictable? Is it unpredictable? Is it always at home? Is it anywhere? Does it matter where your kids are? What sorts of things are they? And really, I would ask parents to look over this for about 2 weeks just to say, okay, can you do me a diary and can you write down exactly what happens? Every time they have a fight, write down how it started. Write down what actually happened. So how did you find out about the fight? Did someone come and tell you, or did you hear them screaming, or what was going on? And then what did you do? Once you found out the fight was going on, what did you do? What did you say? And then what happens after? How did you stop the fight? And then what is the aftermath of the fight? Is there consequences for one or the other? How do you decide whose fault it was? Do you decide whose fault it was? What do you actually do? So I would ask them to map that out, and I'd really love to know while they're doing that, where it happens. Does it happen in the same way if they, stay at a grandparent's house, or if the other parent is there, or basically if they're in a slightly different environment and they're having different supervision? So is the fighting dependent on the place that they're at, and is it dependent on the person who's going to be coming in to sort it out? Because definitely I have seen that with certain parents, children maybe are wanting their attention. Maybe they get into a pattern of getting that attention through fighting, and they know they don't get that kind of attention from the other parent or from a grandparent, so they just don't bother with that. Sometimes if there's attachment difficulties, and often to mum, obviously can be to dad, then there's just more of that kind of behaviour happening with the parent where the attachment difficulty is, because they want more of your attention. And another parent or a grandparent they're not going to be as bothered about attention from them, so it's going to be very different kind of behaviour. So I think that's what's really key, is to really understand what it is that is happening, because once you've sort of done that, once you've essentially got a couple of weeks worth of data, which is what it is, you can start to see some patterns. You can start to see what happens. And the next thing to do is, now you've got it all, is to think, okay, which bits am I going to change? And obviously the things that you can change are anything that triggers it, so any kind of environmental thing. If there's a specific thing they have to share that always triggers it, can there be two of them? Or, is there basically something you can do about the trigger? How do you react to the fight actually happening? Is there something you can do about your own reaction to it? And then what happens kind of in the aftermath? How does it get resolved? Do you need to ask them to do something different, like how do they apologise, or do you need to help them be more independent about resolving fights? So kind of, and I would probably change one thing at a time. If what you're noticing is that maybe it only happens with one parent, and if you're worried that it is about getting some kind of attention, getting some time with that parent, and that having a fight results in time with that parent because you might be sitting with them, talking through it with them, and that's the time they get, is try adding time with the child at a different time that's nothing to do with fighting. Often increasing presence when kids fight, separately with them, so they both get time to have with you, can change what happens, can change whether they're needing to fight, especially if you're sort of thinking, I think there's really a component of them needing to spend some time with me, and that's what they're kind of doing with the fighting. So have a think about that. Look at your kind of diary, look at your data, change different things, and then see what works.